Now, one other thing we got to go over is the mortgage rates, okay? Because the whole housing industry was anticipating mortgage rates to come down. They were all, banking on this next Fed rate cut about how this was just going to change the market and bring buyers back in. Well, guess what? We're seeing a repeat of last year. Mortgage rates have gone up 20 basis points actually since the day before the Fed decided to cut interest rates. Take a look at these charts right here. This shows you where interest rates were at right before the Fed rate cut the day before. They were at 6.13% for 30-year mortgages, and then they shot up to 6.35% over the following few days. And why did this happen? Well, because the 10-year Treasury yields have also been on the rise since then, and everybody always forgets, especially people in the real estate industry, that these 30-year mortgage rates track the 10-year Treasury, not what the Fed does. And when the Fed is lowering interest rates into a high inflationary environment, of course, investors are going to want a bigger and better return. And even these returns on these 10-year bonds are abysmal, 4.13% right now. Who's buying that? I know I'm not. And we saw the same exact thing happen last year, last September. You can see right at the beginning of this chart here how low interest rates were back then. They were about 6.15%. And after the Fed made its first rate cut last September, 1 year ago, then rates eventually shot back up to 7.2% for a 30-year mortgage within a few months. By January of 2025, that's where they were at. So the thing is, these investors who buy these treasuries are focused on where the policy and the rates are going to go in the future, not just where they're at today. So whatever the Fed is doing with cutting rates, it doesn't really matter because they anticipate that inflation is going to be a continued problem. And it is even possible that the Fed may have to actually hike rates and reverse course at some point over the next year or two once inflation becomes too much of a problem. That'll be very interesting to see. I don't know if they've ever done that before. In fact, Fannie Mae's fourth quarter prediction for 30-year mortgage rates is that it's going to be 6.5% at the end of 2025. And right now, we're already back up to 6.3. So that could very well be a pretty accurate prediction. And even then, Fannie Mae predicts that mortgage rates will still be 6.1% by the third quarter of next year. So essentially, mortgage rates are predicted to remain relatively flat between now and the next year from now. So you need to reevaluate and look around and say, okay, if I can't afford a house at today's prices and rates, well, we know interest rates probably aren't going to budge much. So what should we be looking out for instead? Well, you should be looking out for price cuts and be making lowball offers because that's the only way people are going to be able to afford to buy homes. Do not be afraid to offer significantly less than what a seller is asking, especially in this current housing environment. And many more sellers over the next year are going to have a wake-up call and learn the hard way that inflation isn't going anywhere. Interest rates for mortgages probably aren't going to be much lower than this for the foreseeable future. So if you want to get your house sold, there's only one way it's going to happen, and that's lowering the price. And if a lot of people get margin called and end up losing their home, well, then there could be a whole lot more available new listings out there if we see a big crash in the stock market as well. So keep a lookout for that. There's so many things that are working in favor of people who have been patient, people who have been saving and investing their money diligently, and kind of just sitting quietly and waiting for something like this to happen. And as the months go by, more and more pieces of the Jenga tower start to get pulled out, and eventually it's going to come crashing down. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.